What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm excited for today's video because this is something that I get asked about literally all of the time. It's something that I really used to struggle with myself, and I know it's something that a lot of my clients also struggle with. And being a female, I just know that it's really uncomfortable to feel like you're bloated all the time or to experience it on a daily basis. So I just wanted to give you some of my top tips that have really helped me, but tips that have also really helped my clients really improve their digestion to reduce that bloating. Now, I'm not saying that these tips are for sure going to work for you. If your bloating is really uncomfortable, I do suggest you go to a doctor and seek medical attention for it, but I'd love to give you some of my tips that may start to just make you feel better overall. So let's go ahead and dive into the first tip. So my first tip is one that I've said 100 times before, and that is pay attention to your water intake. Water is so important, and it really helps food move throughout your body. It really is going to help with your digestion, and overall it can absolutely help with your bloating. Now, you're not going to notice these changes right away. It does take time for your water intake to have an impact on your digestion, so give it time, but really work on increasing your water intake. I do recommend that you have at least 2 to 3 liters of water per day, or another kind of general rule of thumb is to take your body weight in ounces and divide it by, take your body weight in pounds and divide it by 2 and drink that number in ounces. So there's different kinds of approaches that you can take, but really make sure that you're paying attention to your water intake because that is going to help you so much. Also, if your body is well hydrated, you're just naturally not as hungry because sometimes our body mistakes hunger cues for dehydration. So just make sure that your body's hydrated so you're not consuming extra food that you don't need, but also to really help that food just move through your body, move through your intestines and move through your bowels. It's really going to make a huge difference. I find that when my body's dehydrated, I am naturally just more bloated. My second tip is to manage your stress. Now, obviously, this is so much easier said than done, especially depending on the work that you do and what's going on in your family life and things like that. I totally get it. But if your stress is really high, that means that your cortisol is high. And when your cortisol levels are high, your body does sense it. So naturally, your digestion again is impacted. Stress has such a huge impact on your body. Their studies show that you could be doing all of the right things. You could be working out, you could be eating properly, but if your stress is super high, it can absolutely hold you back from reaching your goals. So stress can play a huge factor in this. You want to make sure that you're bringing that cortisol level down so that you can start to see if that improves your digestion. Now, for us females, of course, when we're on our period or when we're PMSing, that is a time of the month when a lot of females do naturally notice a little bit more bloating, or they notice a little bit more water retention in their body, and this is 100% normal. Now, with this tip here, there's not too much you can do about that other than just keep working on implementing those healthy habits, and that'll really help you. But specifically when you're on your period, there really isn't too much that you can do. It's just that time of month where you're naturally going to notice your body probably bloat a little bit more. There's lots of changes going through your body when you are on your period, so there's not too much that you can specifically do about this one other than just remind yourself that this is just a phase. It's just what your body's going through. For some people it's 3 days, for some people it's 7 days, somewhere between then typically, where your body's just naturally going to be more bloated. So just try to give yourself some grace during that time. I know it's frustrating and it's hard, especially when you're working really hard on your goals and then your time of the month comes and then you're like, what the heck? Why is this happening to me? I totally get it, and I feel the same way. Of course it's frustrating, but there's really not much that you can do. So just be kind to yourself and know that the time will pass and your body will just adjust once your period is over, but also recognize that it's gonna come again in another month. So my tip number 4 is to get good quality sleep. Again, I'm talking about the basics because they're so important. Oftentimes people really start to look for kind of overcomplicate things when really they just need to focus on the basics, like focus on your water intake, focus on your stress. And my fourth tip is focus on your sleep. Sleep is so important. Again, it can throw off the stress levels in your body, which causes your cortisol to be really high. When you're not sleeping, your digestion just isn't the same. So really, really try to get those 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Some people still are able to function properly off a lot less sleep. And if that's you, that's amazing. But make sure that your body is well rested, because that could definitely help you. And again, it's so important to make sure that you're performing optimally in the gym, to make sure that you are present in day-to-day life and work and things like that. So sleep's important for other reasons as well, but it absolutely can have an impact on your digestion. Again, you're not going to notice these changes overnight. Let's say you get one good night of quality sleep, you're going to need more than that. So make sure you're making this like an actual routine, and it's something that you're working on a daily basis, because just one good night of sleep and one good day of drinking lots of water isn't going to allow you to see those changes long term. It really does need to be that lifestyle change. So make sure that you're getting that quality sleep. You're going to feel so much better, and it definitely is going to help you and your digestion. If you're working on trying to improve just your overall quality of sleep, I do recommend getting your body into a routine. This is the easiest way to really just to kind of make that change with your body. If you can get yourself going to bed at a regular time and waking up at like a consistent time, it is going to help your body just naturally fall into that routine and allow you to get those hours that you need. Now, my fifth tip brings me to fiber. Now, you'll notice that some foods are really high in fiber, some foods are really low in fiber, but when it comes to fiber, you need to make sure that you're not under your fiber intake and you're also not over your fiber intake. Both can have an impact on how your body is digesting food, so both can impact your bloating. And fiber is a really, really huge one. If you're not having bowel movements like regularly, this is something that you absolutely want to look into. So my general recommendation is to have somewhere between 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day. If you're really not sure how much fiber you're having right now, I 100% recommend you go into my fitness pal and you track your food. That is going to give you the most accurate representation of what your fiber intake is, and then you can go ahead and add in foods that maybe have more fiber or take away foods that have too much fiber, because like I mentioned, being below 25 grams or being above 35 grams can impact your digestion. And if you're just like a few grams above or a few grams below, you should be okay. But everyone's body's different. Some people respond better to a higher fiber diet, and some people respond better to a little bit of a lower fiber diet. So you might have to just kind of play around and see what your body responds best to. So if you're looking to add more fiber into your nutrition, some really great things to take a look at would be your fruit and vegetable intake. Fruits and veggies have lots and lots of fiber in them. Some fruits and some vegetables have more fiber than others. Some really good fruits that you can add more of into your diet would be like apples, oranges, bananas have really good fiber, raspberries, strawberries, and then some really good vegetables that you could start to add more of into your diet if you're trying to increase your fiber intake would be usually more of like the greener vegetables. So things like broccoli, asparagus, spinach, those kinds of things are typically going to provide you with more fiber than other sorts of vegetables. But vegetables are a really great source of fiber, so majority of veggies will be adding some fiber intake into your diet. However, the ones that I mentioned and other like really green vegetables, deep green vegetables, are going to provide you the most fiber. Some other ways that you can get fiber in is like through beans and legumes are really great sources of fiber. You'll also get fiber in through grains and breads as well as like nuts. So there's lots of different areas of where you can increase your fiber intake. And if you're overdoing it with your fiber intake, again, I really recommend you track your food in my fitness pal, and then you can go through and see which foods are super high in fiber that you might want to cut back on. So I hope that helps you with your fiber intake. And just kind of on the topic of food, that leads me into my sixth tip. Now, my sixth tip is kind of the last one, and I left it the last one for a reason, because I want you to try all of these other things first before you go ahead and start kind of trying to figure out what foods can be causing you sensitivities. So sometimes there's certain foods that we eat it, depending on the person, that can cause us to bloat. It can cause us to become more gassy. It might be something that your body's just really sensitive to. There's some foods I'm going to mention that typically cause people to bloat. And again, this is just completely generalized. So it totally depends on the person. And just because I'm listing these foods doesn't mean this is the reason why you are bloating. That's why I left it as the sixth and the final tip, is because I want this to be the last thing that you try, and that's kind of just testing out and seeing which foods are really bothering you. Like I mentioned, some foods can just cause you to be a little bit more gassy, which can cause your bloat to increase. But overall, when it comes to foods, you do want to make sure that you're still maintaining that balanced diet. So really make sure that you're getting in like those wholesome, nutritious foods. If you're eating tons and tons of processed foods, that is going to impact your bloat, that is going to impact your digestion. So make sure that you are getting in lots of nutritious foods. With that being said, even some nutritious foods can cause people to get really gassy, can cause people's bloat to increase. So I'm gonna list off some foods that cause people lots of sensitivities. So some of those foods are sources of dairy. So any kind of dairy could be bothering you. It might be one food specifically, or it could be all dairy products that might be bothering you. For other people, it could be gluten products that might be bothering you. If you have a gluten sensitivity, or if you're celiac, those are absolutely going to bother you and probably cause you to bloat. Other things like peanuts, broccoli, cauliflower, eggs, sweet potatoes, oats. I'm just trying to think of some off the top of my head. Artificial sweeteners can really cause people to bloat. Those alcohol, sugars, 100%. I notice it right away for myself, and like sometimes I'm willing to sacrifice the bloat because I want the artificial sweeteners. Same goes for all of these foods. Sometimes I'm willing to just be like, okay, it's all right. I'm just accepting that I'm going to be bloated when I eat this food. But other times, if I want to avoid being gassy or avoid being bloated, then I will avoid these foods completely. These are not all of the foods that can cause people to be sensitive. Again, it could be any food that might be bothering you. So a few other things that I do want to mention is make sure that you don't eat too fast. If you eat really fast and you don't chew your food, your body's gonna have so much of a harder time breaking down that food that you're eating and breaking down that food that's in your intestines and your stomach. So make sure that you spend time chewing your food. It sounds so silly, but it really is going to help you. So spend the time, chew your food, because that could also be impacting how your body is digesting food. So I'd love to know below what foods like cause you to be really sensitive. Like if you notice any foods specifically, like for me, I notice, like I mentioned, sugar, alcohols, artificial sweeteners, broccoli, cauliflower, raw, really kind of aggravate my stomach. If I have a lot of dairy, I do notice that my stomach does start to hurt, and I do naturally get a little bit more bloated. So I'd love to know below what kind of foods cause you to increase your bloat or to have a little bit more of like a sensitive stomach. And yeah, let me know if there's any of that I missed. But those are my top 6 tips on how you can start to improve your digestion so your bloat goes down. I have experienced bloating so frequently, and tons of my clients go through this, like I mentioned, and these tips have really helped them as well as myself. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you're new here and you're not subscribed yet, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps just support me and my channel. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!